Alright guys, the games are coming around thick and fast in the Championship at the moment, and we've got loads to discuss in today's video. Back with another round of predictions. We've got all the midweek action to go ahead and digest in today's video as well. And as always, I want to get your guys' verdict on what's going on at your club in the comments down below. Loads to talk over today, so without any further ado, let's hop into it. And starting out with the Friday night fixture, Cardiff going up against Reading. What a result for Cardiff in midweek. Finally, the winless run has been put to an end. It was a disastrous spell that they'd found themselves on, but given some of the other results of teams in and around that area of the table, that 2-0 away win at Birmingham will go a long way towards their survival bid in this second half of the season. A couple of really nice goals scored as well. That free kick, the cherry on top being the Robinson finish. Tricky one to call at home against Reading, a Reading side who have been pretty shaky on the road all season. However, a good result for them, I thought, in midweek. 2-1 against Rotherham, a decently well set up side in Rotherham as well. Lately it was a Andy Carroll inspired comeback in the second half. Will I be brave enough to back Cardiff for back-to-back wins? I'm not sure if they're at that point yet, but I thought it was a much improved performance in midweek, and this one just feels like it has the makings of a draw perhaps. So score prediction here, going to go for a 1-1er between these two. Don't think there'll be a great deal in that one. Have that for Millwall up against Sheffield United. This one's set up to be a really interesting encounter, coming off the back of a loss for Sheffield United, going away to Millwall as a game to bounce back in. I don't think is exactly the ideal situation. It was a real crunch match in midweek, great spectacle. Sheffield United up against Middlesbrough. Sheffield United got themselves into that leading position, but what a turnaround from Borough to get that equaliser and then really turn things on and put on a show in the second half. Now the advantage that the Blades do have is they do still have a 7-point buffer over Middlesbrough with a game in hand on top of that as well. But in terms of a little bit of drama at the top of the Championship, it all adds towards that, I suppose. Tough game though, away at Millwall. Millwall themselves were a little bit under par in midweek away at Coventry, but they don't lose many games at the Den so far this season. Millwall have only been defeated in 2 home matches. This will be the third time that these sides have met this season. They've played twice already, once in the league, once in the FA Cup, and on both occasions Sheffield United ran out as 2-0 winners. However, this one, there's a little bit of a different narrative around it, and with Sheff Utd maybe having a bit of a wobble after that Middlesbrough game, I think I'm going to go and settle on a draw for this one actually. Going to back another 1-1er here. Just feels like a very tight match there, and whether or not Sheffield United will fully click up through the gears after that Borough game. Next then to Ewood Park for Blackburn up against Swansea. Blackburn at it again in midweek with this consecutive drawing streak after going this long in the season, having not drawn any matches, to then draw 4 on the bounce. They're taking the mick at the moment, but I do feel as if this could be an opportunity here to get back to winning ways. Couple of home matches they've got coming up, which I would suggest are fairly winnable with Blackburn's situation at the moment. Even taking their last couple of games in isolation, point away at Watford, point away at West Brom, I think is decent in the grand scheme of things, but it's all about backing it up now with some performances at home. Swansea themselves did get back to winning ways, much needed boost against Blackpool in midweek, albeit probably wasn't vintage stuff in the second half. I think a few intangibles with Swansea are just missing at the moment in terms of a bit of a fragile back line when they're put under pressure. I think their game management could also be questioned over these last few weeks as well. For Blackburn, I think it was massive that Brereton Diaz got back in the act and back within the goals. He'd really gone off the boil over these last few weeks, but if Blackburn are going to challenge for a place in the top 6 this season, he is going to be pivotal to that. Score prediction for this one, I think I actually fancy Rovers, you know. It's been a lot of draws recently. Feel like they might back that up with a home win in this one. So 2-0 Blackburn, I'm saying for that game, but who knows, Swansea could build on their win. After that, to Bloomfield Road for Blackpool up against Stoke, as if things couldn't have got much worse for Blackpool in midweek. Their misery was really confounded by Cardiff picking up all 3 points, the fact that they got themselves back into that game against Swansea only to throw it away moments later. Another red card for the season, I think that's 9 now, meaning that Patino will be out of this game against Stoke, and the winless run ultimately stretches to 14 matches now, which is absolutely bonkers. Also feel like this will be a tough game. We've been at this point with Stoke a few times in the season when they've put in a decent home performance or a performance in general and just not followed it up in the following week. However, some of the characteristics from that display against Huddersfield were really quite promising. First time we got to see Ben Pearson in a Stoke City shirt. I think he looked really good in that role, and I think he will be a really popular player there come the end of the season. Just feels like Alex Neil has this one to get one over on McCarthy, maybe, with the way Blackpool are playing at the moment and Stoke playing on that bounce of confidence from that 3-0 win in midweek. So score prediction here, going to go 2-0 Stoke. Just can't see where the next points are coming from a Blackpool perspective at the moment. After that, to Huddersfield up against Birmingham, and oh my god, after watching that game in midweek, I think that Neil Warnock may be reconsidering his decision to come out of retirement to try and save this Huddersfield squad, because they're looking pretty hopeless at the moment. I think it has to be said. There have been a few glimpses, you know, a 1 or 2 under Fotheringham, not much before that, of, you know, a bit of defensive stability maybe at times, but that's been thrown out the window recently. There just looks to be no sort of spark from them going forward either, apart from nicking a goal here or there from a set piece. And I mean, I don't know. I just don't know how Warnock tries to galvanise where this Huddersfield squad are at this point in time. Up against the Birmingham squad, who have been fairly sort of flaky themselves recently. It wasn't a great result for them in midweek, but just feels like they've got more about them than this Huddersfield squad do at the moment. So for a score prediction in this one, for Warnock's first game in charge, I can't see him getting all 3 points. I'm not even sure he's going to get a point from this one. 1-0 Birmingham, I'm saying, for this one. I think I've got more faith in them bouncing back than I do Huddersfield. Next then, to Hull up against North End. Not the best showing from Hull in midweek. 3-1 loss against Norwich. Bit of a hark back to them earlier on in the season when they were defensively quite vulnerable. It's not really been a characteristic of them under a senior so far. I do back him to turn things around there, though. I've been generally impressed with what he's shown during his tenure, and I would argue that it is a decent time to be playing Preston. No Ched Evans going into this game, he's still suspended, and Ben Whiteman also going to be a miss after he was red carded in midweek. Touching on Preston's midweek performance, it was good to stop the losing rot with that draw, but in terms of the overall performance, it just felt like Luton were putting us to the sword for about 80 minutes. They had some real gilt-edged chances which they didn't put away, and on another day, you know, would have been running out as 3-0 winners, and I would have had no complaints about that. But we get away with one a little bit, get that penalty and get back into it. But I've not got a great feeling about this one going up against Hull here. I worked out after the North End match actually that we've had an inferior XG to our opposition in our last 9 consecutive championship matches. We're struggling to create much at the moment, and we're not keeping clean sheets either. And for that reason, I think Hull take this one. 2-0 Hull, I'm saying, for a score prediction here. North End may be able to, you know, bounce off that Luton point, but I think Hull are the favourites. Next then, to Kenilworth Road for Luton up against Burnley. Just speaking about Luton then, I'm still perplexed how they didn't beat us in midweek. By far and away the better team at Deepdale, and had some real gilt-edged chances in that game. Adebayo especially had a game to forget. In terms of his movement and getting into the positions, he was absolutely fantastic, but when it came to having that killer shot, killer instinct, that was just completely vacant in this game. They did get themselves into the leading position, obviously North End down to 10 men as well, so will have been massively frustrated to have not held out for all 3 points, because I think overall the performance definitely deserved it, but that lack of clinical ability just cost them. And I'm wondering, up against a side like Burnley, when you're going to need to be more clinical than ever, Burnley don't allow you to have a lot of the ball, how are they going to react in that situation? In terms of Burnley, the winning streak finally came to an end, but they did manage to rescue a late dramatic point against Watford. This Burnley side just can't be stopped at the moment, and they do have that never say die attitude about them. And in terms of the strength in depth, the options that company has to bring on from the bench to change something when it's not going their way, it is scary. Also, Burnley fans, do stay tuned on the channel for tomorrow when I've got a video coming out about you guys. Score prediction in this one, really like Luton, but I do feel like Burnley will take this one. 2-1 Burnley, I'm saying, for this game. Just think they've got more in the final third. Next then, to Middlesbrough up against QPR. If there's one game that QPR didn't want to be playing at the moment, it's away at Middlesbrough. I actually can't believe how badly this Neil Critchley appointment has gone for QPR. On paper, when they made that appointment, you know, after the work he'd done at Blackpool, promotion with them, solidifying them as a championship club, I really thought they got a decent act to follow Beale, but at the moment it's the points QPR accumulated under Beale which is keeping them at an arm's length away from a relegation battle, because QPR's recent form would suggest that they'd be right in it. 9 matches without a win now for them. Rotherham, another really dismal showing in midweek, far too easy to play against and cut open ultimately by Sunderland, who put 3 goals past them. And with the confidence that Middlesbrough are playing with at the moment, particularly after coming off that high against Sheffield United, Archer involved again with the goals. Took a little bit of time for him to get properly bedded in, but now he is scoring, and he's scoring at a frequent rate. He's going to absolutely explode, I feel like, in this second half of the season along with Akbom. So score prediction in this one, I'm going to go 3-0 Middlesbrough. Really feel like that could be a routine win for Borough and could get ugly for QPR. After that, to Rotherham up against Coventry. Not a complete disaster of a midweek for Rotherham, despite the loss against Reading, due to the fact that none of the bottom 3 won in the end. But that gap between themselves and the relegation zone is continuing to narrow ever so slightly. And I think it is, a frustration when you do have a run of consecutive draws to then follow it up with a loss. I think that's really then hammered home because of the no wins in 4. Up against Coventry, who did get back to winning ways in midweek. Fantastic strike from Gyökeres in a really tough looking match actually against Millwall. But yeah, terrific strike from outside the box, just bends it in at the far post into the bottom corner. Rotherham feel like they need a bounce back in this one, particularly with that gap between themselves and the relegation zone currently just sitting at 3 points, and I feel like this one might have a draw written all over it. 1-1, I think I'm going between these two here. Coventry still got that hope of maybe a top 6 shot at the end of the season if they do get those regular wins on over the line, but for this one I'm going 1-1. After that, to the Stadium of Light for Sunderland up against Bristol City. Sunderland will be looking to solidify their place in the top 6. It was another cracking result for them in midweek. I think they really sensed blood in that game against QPR, a side who was on a dreadful run, and they just went ahead and compounded the misery on them in that one. Jack Clark having a fantastic showing in that 3-0 win with a brace towards the end of that one. Will be a different sort of match against the Bristol City side, who are on a good run at the moment. The second longest unbeaten run in the Championship, only second to Burnley. 7 unbeaten now for Bristol City. Despite that, it probably was a little bit of a frustrating one for them in midweek. 1-1 draw against Wigan, not at their flying best, but a game like this could suit them, looking to play on counters if they can be clinical enough and take their chances this time. With that being said, I've really quite liked the look of Sunderland recently, and all good runs must come to an end. I feel like it could be in this one for Bristol City. Score prediction, going to go 2-1 Sunderland, but I wouldn't put it past Bristol City to get something with the way they're playing. After that, to Wigan up against Norwich. The road to recovery for Wigan does continue. Another game week, it stretches the unbeaten run to 3 now. A 1-1 draw with Bristol City, and just about getting themselves back within touching distance of those sides who are above them at the moment. They're currently 2 points off Cardiff, 3 points off Rotherham. It is going to be a tough game returning to the DW4 though, against the Norwich side, who I thought really looked quite good actually against Hull. Pretty comfortable in the end, scoring 3 goals in that one. The 2 consecutive losses surprised me, I'm not going to lie, for Norwich under Wagner. I thought they'd really turned the corner with those wins against Preston and Coventry, but we'll see what they're made of against a resilient Wigan side who aren't giving that much away to the opposition at the moment, despite their position in the table. I think that of the games that Norwich have won recently, Dowell and Hernandez especially have been absolutely central to those games. I think Dowell especially will be right up for this one against this former side in Wigan. Norwich will have large periods of this game where they are on top, but Wigan can spring on things, and it's whether or not they do have the resilience to keep Norwich out when they are knocking on the door, because it does feel like that kind of match in this one. Score prediction, I wouldn't put it past Wigan grinding out another point, but I do think Norwich take this one on the road with that bit more quality in the final third. So I'm going to go 2-0 Norwich in this one, I think. And then finishing it off with the Monday night match between Watford and West Brom. This will be an interesting encounter, because I think at the start of the season, 2 sides who we expected to be minimum top 6. There's not been a great deal between them so far this season, only a couple of points separating them in the league table. Watford, who are just about hanging on to that place in the top 6 at the moment, and West Brom currently in 10th. Watford had this consecutive streak of draws recently. 4 their last 5 results have all ended as draws. It has meant that the chasing pack below them have cut up quite a bit of ground on them recently. recently. We spoke about the whole goalkeeping situation on the last Championship roundup with David Button. Well, they did make that call to go ahead and put Griffiths in midweek, and very close to a clean sheet had it not been for Brereton Diaz popping up in the 89th minute to give Rovers that equaliser. In terms of Watford, obviously it was another draw for them in midweek, playing out that 1-1 draw with Burnley. Absolute bonkers game in the end. They were moments away from hanging on for all 3 points there as well. Pedro with the moment of quality, but Burnley just always come back, and Michael Obafemi with that 95th minute equaliser. With the way Watford are going at the moment, very draw heavy, I think this one's got a 1-1er written all over it, so that's what I'm going to go in this one. 1-1 between those two. Don't think there's going to be that much there, but a win for either side would go a long way to their top 6 hopes. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like and do stay subscribed for some regular Championship content. Do leave your predictions in the comments down below. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.